Gentlemen, I've brought you here to discuss the Eastwood problem.
It may be necessary to penetrate the Vinny Eastwood show.
The Vinny Eastwood show.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Well, I've been working on a new Vinny scene. I think that might be the kind of penetration we need.
The Vinny Eastwood show. Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Live on Ground Zero Radio.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites. My fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood show is bad news. It's like the news, but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another exciting episode of the Vinny Eastwood show. Broadcasting live on Ground Zero Radio and Freedom Hub Radio in New Zealand, as well as Kiwi Radio as well. I wonder if anybody else out there wants to syndicate the old Vinny Eastwood show. You know, give me your codes to lock into your little network at Showtime and stuff like that. You can broadcast to so many. Like back in the day, you had to do this network spread, and everybody had to carry the show in their own technical way. But nowadays we've got new technology whereby you can access all bunches of radio networks simultaneously through little programs like BUTT and MIXXX, and it's a great thing really, because you can use technology that is newly developed that can basically do the things that you used to be able to do, but much easier, much quicker, with less complications, much like how a horse and cart was replaced by a station wagon. Anyway, the Vinny Eastwood show is a listener-supported broadcast, ladies and gentlemen, and I am very, very grateful to each and every one of you who contributes in ways both minor and major to the Vinny Eastwood show. Collaboration is key, so if you are wanting to get a project off the ground and you are inspired by the show or something of that nature, the amount of people that have websites now and their own shows now, and have finished their first video, or have learned how to use their editing software on their programs and things of that nature because of asking me for my help, is quite voluminous, right? Because the fact of the matter is I had to learn all these things myself, and I had a little bit of mentorship here and there, but it's largely about doing the work. Are you willing to put the effort in? Are you willing to do your broadcasting on a regular basis? Have you got the gumption to put up with all of the little roadblocks that they put in your way? Are you going to go the distance? Can you survive going through this process of transitioning from a normal slave into one who doesn't want to be a slave anymore and is willing to do the work all the time in order to end slavery in our time? If you are one of those people and you're sick of sitting around talking about it and you want to do something about it, I applaud you, and go ahead and do it. And if you can't do it by yourself and you're still a little bit confused and you're humming and hawing and stuff like that, that's not good. Sometimes all you need is somebody who knows exactly what they're talking about to just go like, hey, hold on a second, I'll just hold your hand here through this little windy road and a rickety rope that you can hang on to, and we will get this thing done together. I remember I had Robert Zimmerman, and he was creating a Māori esports team. You know, just things out of left field. Doesn't matter what it is, because it's all the same kettle of fish in terms of producing and making things fun and cool looking and building the basic websites and stuff like that. And you know, people ask where he came up with the idea for a Māori esports team, and the reply that we got on the thing was, "I stole it, Al." It was just great, you're just having fun and getting things done. That's the whole idea behind it. And I like to help people. I like to collaborate, and so just get in touch and see what we can do for you. My very special mod, the best mod on the internet, in my humble opinion. And is that because he actually is the best mod? No, probably not. But he's the best one I've seen so far. There might be a better mod out there, but I don't know who that is, because nobody else compares to the fabulous DK-spiracy that's in the chat room under the moniker DB123. And as always, this guy, he does 24-hour live streaming. Right, even doing a couple of hours of radio a week is a lot when you're doing it by yourself. This guy does 24/7. He's been doing it for years and years and years on end. He's been banned more than anybody else, and he deems my show worthy of modding for, and I am deeply grateful for that. And the same goes for other people as well who are in the mod team, like A. Mosdale and Drake, who make a considerable effort to turn up and encourage the show and keep the riff-raff out at the chat rooms. Because today, the show is about loneliness and depression in the truth movement. Now, there's a number of elements to really understand here, like how these things actually affect your mind. Do they affect your mind in such a way as to limit your reasoning capacities? Loneliness, isolation, if you've come into the truth about things, not your truth, not my truth, but the truth, you're going to come into conflict with those people who are close around you who are not into the truth. Okay? And there's a certain hunger, there's a certain thirst for truth that people will experience, and that's why they are willing to sacrifice so many hours of their time. Like, I remember people who've been listening to the show for over a decade now at this point, and just kind of like thinking about the thousands of hours of guests I've been interviewing that they've been listening to. And at the same time, when I interview a guest, I'm learning like quite significantly, because you're talking to different people from all over the world who've been through significant hardship as a result of going their own way, carving their own path, and bringing things to light that previously resided in the dark. And there is a cost for that. The loneliness, the isolation, the depression, the frustration, resentment, and things of that nature will affect you unless you've got a lid on it. I remember one time I had to stop myself. I was driving along the road and I saw somebody on the side of the road, and just by the look of them, I started to rationalize how many vaccines they've had, how much fluoridated water they drink every day, how the chemtrails are affecting their brain as they, just snort that stuff up on a daily basis. And I was like, wait, hold on a second, Vinny. You're being judgmental and superior. Well, why are you doing that? Right? Because occasionally, and this happens to troops on the front line in the battlefield as well, you forget what you're fighting for. All right? You look at your feet to watch where you're stepping for so long that you forget that sometimes you can look up and you can see the stars in the sky. Right? And that's what happens when you get into the truth. It becomes a significantly difficult thing to deal with socially, because as a conspiracy theorist, you don't get invited to many parties, like when people are leaving the party because of the uncomfortable things that you're talking about and what have you, as they're getting up and walking away, you go, Google satanic ritual abuse. I'm joking. I'm not joking. I'm joking. And this element that people don't want to have, right? So you've got this concept of isolation. Right now, because human beings are social creatures, and because the truth movement is not really a social movement, people don't really get along. They don't really have big groups of friends and things of that nature. Because we generally came to the truth in our own way, and therefore it's more of an individual quest. And the individual who gets themselves into a position where they're capable of processing the information that you've received, no matter how dark it may be, no matter how complex it may be. Most people are not actually capable of doing that, or at the very least not capable just yet. So if you're one of those people who is able to maintain a concentration span for significant periods of time, so that you can absorb thousands of hours of podcasts and documentary about hundreds of different topics, and then understand those topics, like not just like, I watched this video this other day and they said this, that, and the other, and I haven't practiced it yet, and now I'm going to preach about it because I don't fully understand it, and in order to get more understanding, instead of having to actually practice it, what I preach, right? It happens. I'm telling you, it does happen, and it's a tremendous waste of people's potential. So if you have a look at yourself objectively, no ego or anything like that, just look at the things that you have done. Look at the amazing skills that you bring to the table. Look at the things that you've created that nobody else did. It was just you. Look at how long you've been doing it for. Look at how many temptations that you've gone through to become a corrupted individual and start lying to yourself and lying to others that you resisted. Really, just think about what an immense achievement that is, guys. You no longer need to justify yourself to anyone. Hear what I say now. You don't have to justify yourself to anyone. Who you are, what you've done, what you've known, and all of the work that you've put in. Real work, Sitting there and interviewing somebody or listening to a podcast, you may think that, you're just taking time off or you're not working that hard. No, but it's still work. And the alternative is not doing any of that work. You're not one of those people who chose the easier alternative. You chose to do something better with your time. You chose to improve yourself. You chose to learn. You chose to apply the things that you've learned. You chose to help people rather than hurt them. You chose to contribute to society rather than take something from it. That is again, small achievement. And every now and again, you need to remind yourself, because you forget, don't you, where you are, what you've done, what you've actually accomplished, who you really are. Because sometimes you get depressed, you doubt yourself, all right? Doubt is like a worm weaving its way into your mind. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, it's not perfect yet. Oh, people will judge me. Don't doubt yourself. Okay, I had, what was his name? Nichols. Jamie Nichols from Australia used to write for Rolling Stone magazine, and he got given his first radio gig. It was like 20,000 listeners in Sydney or something. And his producer tells him, Jamie, in this job, you're going to have a lot of people who want to become your critics. The trick is to not become one of them. Now, because of the idea that the truth matters, right, and you actually want to do something with it, it's going to cause a lot of resentment around in the other people in your life, okay? Other people who the truth doesn't quite matter as much to as it does to you, and they're not going to want to hang out with you. They may not know it, and you might not have intuited it, but it's because you make them look bad. You make them doubt themselves, okay? And because they don't like you, because you make them doubt themselves, because you appear to be so sure of yourself and you're quite capable and you're actually doing something, they begin to be resentful, right? And there's a feedback loop with that. So if you're around resentful, negative people and things of that nature, it's going to infect you, all right? Like a parasitical organism. You need to be around people who actually appreciate you and listen to you, people that you can create things with, collaborate with, so that at the end of, for example, an all-night drinking session, an average one, what would you say that you've brought away from it that you can show other people the next day? Generally, nothing. You know, you have a few drinks, you have a good time, so on and so forth. Did you create a song? Did you create some new jokes? Did you record them? Did you log them? Did you do a show of some description? Did you write a new concept up that you can work on later? Are you actually accomplishing something with the people that you are hanging out with? Is it a productive relationship, right? And so if you're isolated from society, as most truthers are, the amount of times that you actually get to talk with people, okay, because there's a cadence to talking, right? Yeah, and you'll notice this sometimes with people who have had significant isolations, is that they don't know how to talk to people. They interrupt when they shouldn't. They talk over when they shouldn't. They keep talking for long periods of time when they shouldn't. You see, this is due to the isolation. It's very similar to how children work in a family, is that the kids will get the impression from their siblings of when to shut up, when to talk, when to participate, and you strengthen those bonds within that part of your brain which is capable of handling and participating into conversations. But those things are like muscles that you don't use atrophy and die, and you need to work them back up again. So this becomes one of the main things about the isolation of being a truther, is that in order to end that isolation, you've got to be around people who are capable of accepting the fact that you've gone through it and that you don't know how to communicate with people anymore. You've forgotten. You can relearn it, but just coming to the point where you realize that you don't know how to talk to people makes you afraid to talk to people. We're afraid of the unfamiliar. We're afraid of difficulty, of a significant challenge in this regard. And that's why it becomes so difficult to overcome that depression, because you have to participate actively. You cannot sit there in your head thinking about your problems and expect those problems are going to resolve themselves. Sometimes they do. You know, if you just ignore something, it goes away. And that's absolutely true, particularly with internet trolls and things of that nature. Goodness knows how much time I spent arguing with them and worrying about them and stressing out about them. But as soon as now that there's an abusive comment, and as soon as it becomes identified as abusive comment, I understand that the brain doesn't have any firewalls, okay? I can tell you something and you will see it in your head. Here is a fluffy kitten and an even fluffier puppy. And they're best friends. And they're wrestling. Just think about it. Did you see it in your head? You can actually feel the kind of thing, the cuteness and what have you. Words are particularly powerful. And so the words you listen to on a daily basis, the feedback that you get will trigger these reactions in your brain. It's kind of like if you've got a glass of water, and what are you tipping into that glass of water? Is it perhaps a little bit of lemon juice, you know? Maybe a bit of lime juice. Maybe you've got a sprig of peppermint in there or something of that nature. Or are you putting black tarry engine oil into it. You see? The toxins that we pour into our waters through our ears have a palpable effect, because we're not a chemical organism. Okay, the thoughts that we have and so on and so forth. It's something like you have broadcasting capacity. Like, let's say you've got something to say, but you don't have an audience who actually wants to listen. Okay, that's going to be perpetually frustrating. All right, and that's the main point of why you get isolated, is because if you're not stupid, you'll recognize that the vast majority of people don't want to listen. Okay, and you may be suffering under the misconception that everybody has to listen to this, and everybody has to listen to this right now, and that's the only way we can feel like we're accomplishing anything, is if everybody's waking up all at once, if we've got billions of followers, so on and so forth. But that's not what the truth really is. I mean, yes, there's a level of achievement that people can get to because of their hard work, their talent, their dedication, their teams of people that come to support them, because an individual can only do so much. That's what the serenity prayer was about. Have the courage to change the things that you can, right? And the thing is, sometimes you can't change something. All right? But it's not the things that you can change, right? It's the things you can change that must change. Whether or not you're actually able to change them by yourself is irrelevant. If it needs to change, it needs to change. And this goes for the outside problems in the world as well as the internal struggles that we all go through. So if you're in the truth movement, the chances, I think, are almost guaranteed. I haven't actually met an exception to this rule yet, but they could possibly be out there. There is a bell curve. You have experienced trauma, authority betraying you, and ostracization from other people, and you've experienced betrayal by people in positions of power, whether those people had power in your relationship, power in your workplace, or power in your educational institution. You rubbed up against them because you perceived that their authority was not justified, and you paid the price for not bowing your head and just doing what you're told. And this left you with unresolved trauma. And if you've got unresolved trauma, the chances are very good that you'll develop some form of addiction. Okay? Addictions that allow you to experience an altered state of mind that is nicer, more relaxed, less anxious than your normal running speed. Okay? That's what Barry Cooper, the most decorated drug enforcement officer of all time, told me, is that people who are addicts are simply people that have unresolved trauma, right? So that means that pretty much everybody in the truth movement is an addict of some description. And, you know, there's some people in the truth movement who are particularly healthy and so on and so forth, and they don't necessarily fall into that category. Or do they? Think about that. There are people who look very, very healthy, people who have their wealth together, and that is a representation of how much work that they've actually done. Okay, they've seen into the truth of themselves. Because it's not just finding about the truth about 9/11 and chemtrails and nanotechnology and Freemasonic satanic ritual abuse that will help you in life. No, that's just information. It doesn't matter. It is said that before enlightenment you must chop wood and carry water. And after enlightenment you must chop wood and carry water. Nothing actually changes because you just learned something. That you still have the daily process of life. And this comes down to the concept of self-care. If you understand that the world doesn't really care about you, and your experience will have informed this belief. Nobody cares about me. Oh yeah, why do you think that? Well, all the authority figures that I had in my life betrayed me. My mum and my dad weren't really there for me, and I didn't really have a whole bunch of mentorship and care and encouragement, or at least not as enough as I really needed to grow up and be a balanced individual. Yes, I know. Welcome to the club. This is what the New World Order did to us all. All of us. Even those who haven't awakened yet as to the fact that the New World Order had a hand in the trauma of their upbringing. Oh, but hold on a second, it was my dad that traumatized me, it was my mum that traumatized me, it wasn't the New World Order. Really? Did your mum or your dad by chance grow up in a world controlled by the aforementioned New World Order? Well, yeah, and that means that they controlled the education institutions that they went to? Yeah, and the businesses that they worked for? Well, yeah, and the governments that dictated that what was illegal and what wasn't illegal? Well, yeah. Well, then they've been programmed by the New World Order just like you, except you've got second-hand trauma from them as well. Okay? Being born into a slave system, right, is not a fun effing experience. It's a painful one. And it's even more painful if you're cognizant of it. That's why people ignore you. That's why people don't invite you to their parties. That's why people talk about you and run you down behind your back. Because if you're right, that means that they've been traumatized for reasons what they've been previously unaware of. That means that they're going to have to shift their thinking and their entire life's direction in order to understand the things that you're talking about. And that puts a lot of pressure on them, you know? What did you do last night? I was having a conversation with Vinny Eastwood, and he had like 20 or 30,000 hours more experience talking about the subject than I did. So it was really difficult for me to go through because I had to download significant amounts of knowledge that I was probably going to forget after just listening to it one time, and then having to rewatch it and then practice it and go out and do all these things and then come up with a working example of how things actually work so that I could actually process the process of living life and understanding what's going on at any given moment and how things have inputs and outputs and processing that are inherent with the comprehension of the laws of reality. You know? That's not a fun thing. It's telling the children that there's no Santa Claus. I don't know if I've never actually talked to anybody who had to tell their kids that there's no Santa Claus, because it's a meme type thing, isn't it? Because you're removing illusion, right? The word is, somebody, a mate of mine, he was accused of being disillusioned. All right, now, disillusioned has a negative connotation, you know, like somebody who's really down in the dumps and complaining about everything, but that's not what it means. Disillusioned means you are no longer operating under a delusion. So if the people are calling you disillusioned, it means that they're saying that it's a bad thing to not operate under the influence of a delusion that somebody else created for you. That's really what they're saying. You know, you can read into it, and that's where the resentment comes in. Because you have done this work, haven't you? You do know what you're talking about, don't you? And these people won't friggin' see it! They won't friggin' listen! You know, how many people have died around you that you could have saved if only they'd listened to you? Oh, hey, bro, have you tried intravenous vitamin C? Have you tried Phoenix Tears? Have you tried doing a psilocybin trip in order to remove all of that psychological baggage that you've been dealing with? Have you done MDMA therapy or blah, blah, blah. There's so many things that people can do to relieve themselves of their burdens, both physical, psychological, and spiritual. Billy TK is a prime example of that. Had him on the show last week. This is a former blues musician, rock star, womanizer, kind of dude, and he's just absolutely amazing. He's the best person I've ever worked with because he cares about you. He makes sure to provide things for you. When you're working, right, and you're doing it for free, or even if you're doing it for money, it's nice if somebody actually appears to care and helps you out and buys food and makes you actually feel like you're being taken care of, right? To a large degree. That's where the comfort comes in. And we've got Michael Vatch on. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, saying, welcome to Boots on the Ground. And I'm not sure exactly what that means. Michael, would you be able to enlighten me in the description there? And if it's good, then in that case, thank you. Thank you very much, bro. I love it. And so this whole concept of, say, working with Billy TK versus working with some other people in the truth movement reminds me of a guy that I was doing work with. In fact, it reminds me of quite a number of people, in point of fact, who, whilst they are in the quote-unquote truth movement, or at least claim to be, they haven't actually done the processing that's necessary in order to qualify having a full concept of who they really are, how they interact with other people, and that's because of the isolation and depression and things of that nature, right? That's what's happened to us all. We've had the kind of friendship that we used to have with people that we might have been drinking buddies with or whatever, evaporate. Because we thirsted for truth so much that we were no longer craving friendship with people who weren't into the truth. That's what happens when you get into the truth, is people no longer want to be friends with you. And that's really sad. It's sad when you have been friends with somebody for a long time, a decade or something of that nature, and suddenly they're just gone from your life. And that part of that support network, the part that keeps you alive, okay, the part that helps you remember what you're fighting for, the part of life that is fun and friendly, disappears. And then that's terrible. And we need to be getting together. We need to have friends. We need to be creating together, doing projects and things of that nature. Because why? Why is it important to have friends that you can actually do things? All right, the answer should seem obvious. But the real reason is having friends that can do things means that you are not limited in what you can accomplish by yourself. Okay, like my band, for example, Vinny and the Vendettas, the amount of songs that we've created together versus the amount of songs that I've created by myself is night and day. You know, you have a team of guys together, you're all on the vibe, you're jamming, you're recording, and you've come up with like 80 songs that could be good enough for an album, you know, like really, really good stuff. And without those guys, I wouldn't have been able to sing those songs. Those lyrics wouldn't have come to me without their literal vibrations, you know, from their heart and the fun time that we have together as a band, and corresponding being able to play well enough that you can send your emotions through instruments. You know, that's what it is in terms of artistry as a form of therapy. You are sending your emotions into a circle, and if in general society that circle does not accept your artistry and keep it going around a circle, you know, my idea comes out, another person picks it up, another person reflects it back, the idea comes back to me even better than it was before, and we go round again until we've created something so good that neither of us could have created on our own, and let alone couldn't have built it on our own, at least not in the same way, because everybody's got these individual talents that they bring to the fore, like teams of people. You have a look at the movies, for example. Do you routinely sit through the credits? You know, sometimes I do, and just amazed at the huge quantity. Like this, man, there was like nearly 10,000 people working on this movie. Whoa, you know, the idea of coordinating and getting that many artists, who are all broken people, mind you, all the good ones anyway, to work together on a single vision and bring it to the screen. Okay? Now, think about that in a political context, or any organization for that matter, because this goes with everything, is that being in charge shouldn't be about telling people what to do and making it happen and stuff like that. It's actually about taking care of the people that are in your charge, right? If they're feeling good, if they're feeling valued, their creativity won't have any blocks. Like I get writer's blocks sometimes when I'm stressed out, for instance. You know, if I'm feeling happy and I'm feeling great, you know, I could write a script so quickly it'll make your head spin. But if I'm feeling lonely, isolated, depressed, threatened, frustrated, and things of that nature, the creativity can't flow. And that's why those collaborative partnerships are actually so important. Okay? Those two, constricting those negative processes that go through our heads, that self-doubt. All right? There is so much self-doubt out there that it's freaking unbelievable. The madness of it. Again, as I said in the beginning of the video, just remember who you are, what you've done, how far you've come, all the things that you've accomplished, man. All right? And you don't need to justify yourself to anyone anymore. Just freaking do it. Be yourself. Get it done, man. We got Michael, who's our first boots on the ground. Thank you, brother. He says, it's long overdue. My first dose of Vinny was when he had a friend as a guest, and it was a 4-way hit. Yeah, like 2 boxing matches happening in the same ring. And Cliff is like, why is it winter in the background, and yet is it summer in the southern hemisphere right now? And yes, it is summer in the southern hemisphere, but we unfortunately took this footage during the winter, but it doesn't seem to be. But anyway, yes, this is the green screen. My mate Mike, who's actually my guitarist for Vinny and the Vendettas, went out with his camera and shot that and edited the green screen together. And he's just got a beautiful eye for things, and he's made me a number of different variants over the years. This one's a little bit getting a bit old now. Maybe Mike will make me another green screen. But yeah, he's the man, and I love it. And Michael saying, which Vin was with me when I saw The Matrix and spoke with one of the programmers. Oh man, I was a kid when I watched The Matrix. I think I was on the St. James Theatre in Queen Street in Auckland, and I remember stepping out onto the street and looking down one side of the street, and you see the whole street going all the way down the hill, and looking at the other side of the street and the whole street going all the way up the hill, and just thinking that this could be a computer simulation. Like, mind is just blown with all of that kind of stuff. And it turns out, I was told this the other day, that somebody came up with a script that was very similar to The Matrix, allegedly was stolen by the Wachowski brothers, which was a much, much better script and a much, much better story and things of that nature. And it's like, I've had creative content off me stolen in vicious fashion, and I know how much that hurts. If you had a really good concept and then some psychopath that you have a meeting with takes all your concepts and then cuts you out and tells everybody you walked away from the project, that can hurt quite significantly, because intellectual property can be quite a personal thing, particularly if you haven't actually created it yet. I was going to create that. Well, did you? No, it got stolen from me. That's too bad. Have you tried making your own original one then? To compete with the one that was stolen from you, to show people how good it was? No, I was too depressed. Well, that's too bad. And Michael saying, after seeing that video, I want to move to New Zealand. Great Sword of Orion. Trust me, bro, you don't want to move to New Zealand. Like, bro. Deliver me from this nation. That Thomas Jefferson said that being a patriot is about protecting one's country from one's government. And how they say the grass is greener on the other side. It's like you've got the same stuff over there, like in that movie Pulp Fiction, where he's talking about McDonald's in Amsterdam, right? Or in France, and how the quarter pounder with cheese in France is called a Royale with cheese, right? And it's like that. They got the same stuff over here in New Zealand that you got there where you're living. It's just a little bit different, right? Like in the United States and Australia, there's an of enthusiasm in certain parts of the country, usually the hot places, where people actually kind of have a generally positive attitude, and they're not terribly dour and kind of like grumpy and sort of standoffish. They have somewhat of an enthusiastic response. Whereas New Zealand being largely cold and damp to a large amount of the time, and even when it is warm, it's so hot, sticky, warm that you can't frickin' bear it. So it's like the weather's never always that great, Sometimes it can be good, but most of the time it's just not. We just went through like 3 years of constant rain, I remember distinctly, I was walking down the road one day and I saw that a small section of the sidewalk was dry. And I was shocked. I hadn't seen dry sidewalk in 3 years. 3 years of rain! My gosh! The frustration of it. You notice how the weather can affect your mood quite significantly. Like my mate Caleb, he talked to me about how when it's really windy, he has a tendency to get depressed. And I was like, whoa, hold on a second. Because we just had this windy period and I was talking to him about it. And I was like, wait, hold on a second. When it didn't go windy, I was feeling a little bit depressed as well, man. I don't know what it is. Isn't it? And that's why I think, possibly, the reason why people who come from really warm, sunny climates where the weather's generally quite nice are a lot more enthusiastic. Whereas in New Zealand, it's not very enthusiastic at all. In fact, John Ansell, who's an award-winning ad man here in New Zealand, he told me that that is New Zealanders' quintessential quality, a lack of enthusiasm. And the further south you go, like if you're at the tip of the North Island, it's not terribly enthusiastic. But if you're at the bottom of the South Island, like in Dunedin, like I was when I was a student, I was at a party and soon was standing around drinking, and the South Island guy sitting next to me, he goes, "Yeah, it's going to be a good night, bro." And I turned to my mate from Auckland, and I was like, "These guys don't seem very enthusiastic, man." And to which he replies, "Are you kidding me? I've never seen them this excited." It's this sort of dour lack of enthusiasm can be brought on by weather and all sorts of things, but also just the fact that you're living in New Zealand where there's nothing going on because nobody's here to really have that impetus, right? American artists and singers and songwriters and things of that nature, it's a quintessential spread of their body of work, isn't it? That when you come from a small town, you don't like it very much. And then when you get into the big city and you get all this energy and then you start meeting all these people and collaborating with all these projects and doing all this work and expanding your horizons and things of that nature, it feels great. But Auckland, which has nearly 2 million people now, it still feels like a small town. In fact, the whole country. This is what my producer, Mitch Santel, who's probably, I would say, the best producer I've ever worked with in my life. And he's better even than really, really good, well-paid producers that work in professional radio. He's just better. Okay? Because he could do things that they can't frickin' do. He's got so much energy, so much enthusiasm, so much encouragement and support. My producer for the show back in the day, Mitch Santel. Without him, the show literally wouldn't exist. And he just gave it to me, just a wonderful guy. And that's what I thought was quite important, is stopping those negative thought cycles that we have and that self-doubt and giving in to encouragement, It's just like, all right, I suppose I'll be encouraged, Why is that conceivably a bad thing? I don't think it really is. Now, of course, there are a lot of things that distract your attention, right? Like, let's say, for instance, you had an idea that you wanted to get off the ground, and you couldn't find anybody who cared about the idea enough to help you along with it. That sucks, man. Especially if it's an idea that you can't do by yourself, right? How perpetually frustrating. Wrong. Marcus Aurelius said that if a man can do it, then it's possible for you to do it. Okay? You look at anybody, anywhere, doing anything at any time, and the chances are quite good that if you work hard enough, you'll be capable of doing it to a degree. Okay? There might be people who are great talk radio show hosts and what have you, and maybe you're not very good at it yet. Maybe you're still learning. Maybe you haven't done the training and had the experience to, shave down all those rough edges and make a smooth, beautiful piece of art when you speak to your audience. Okay? All about putting that work in. And if you don't have friends and you're not regularly creating things and you're not involved with projects that bring out your inherent creativity, you will forget what you're fighting for. Okay? I've seen people in this movement, the majority, the vast majority actually, like 90, 95, maybe even 99% of people who start doing a radio show or start some branch of activism don't continue because they recognize, quite rightly so, that it's not easy, that it's actually quite difficult, and it's not very rewarding. Because if you're going into it with the concept that it's going to be easy and it's going to be rewarding, you're simply wrong. Okay? That's an incorrect way of thinking about it. So, like, for example, we were on a set filming for a mate of mine, the most expensive student film ever made in New Zealand, or at least that's what we're saying it is. And I felt at times like I listened to other people and they were complaining or they weren't quite happy or things weren't going quite right and they were upset about it, or there was this, that, or the other challenge happening. And we came up with the terms that we used a lot is putting out fires. Okay, there's this problem over here. Okay, Vinny is going to sort it out. There's that problem over there. Vinny's going to sort it out. It didn't matter what my job description was, because when I came in, first assistant director, I read the description of the job and said that that's easy. There's going to be a lot more stuff going wrong, and I know that it's going to come at me, and I'm not going to be prepared for it, but I'm going to accept it, and I'm going to do it better than anyone. And I did. Right? When you walk into stuff and you're prepared for anything, but if you walk into stuff and you have these expectations that you haven't actually spoken aloud, these expectations of other people's behavior, about what your day is going to be like, about what your work is, right? This obsession with planning that some people have because they have a massive anxiety. Because when things are unplanned, things can go wrong. Yes, it's true. However, if you keep your head, that's the most important survival tool, more than food, more than water and guns, is your mind. If you can keep your mind clear and process what is coming at you, when it's coming at you, that is going to help you to accept the things that you can't control. Marcus Aurelius, again, said, don't wish for things to be as you want them to be. Wish for things to be as they are. All right? It becomes an acceptance of the protocol of how communication in this world is really a subsequent process of inspiration. All right? Unless you're inspired or something, whatever you're communicating isn't going to really hold a lot of value for people because, again, that lack of enthusiasm. Seeing something in your head, are you an artist? When was the last time you created an artwork? Is your room filthy? Have you done the dishes? Did you get the vacuuming done? Is your washing folded and put away? Have you got all your stuff squared away? What about that pile of stuff that you don't use anymore that has been sitting in cupboards for years? Have you cleaned those out? Have you gone through all those photos on your phone and your computer and arranged them and labeled them and dated them and given them a brief description so that whenever you want to actually find one of those things, you don't have to scroll for frickin' ages through your phone. You can just search the thing and what have you, right? Getting your shit together. Those 4 words, I think they're really encouraging, quite frankly. Getting one's shit together. It sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Because it's hard to do. Because of the destructive habits that we have. Destructive habits that are self-destructive and that are, unbeknownst to us, the results of previous trauma. Okay? It's another thing. Well, we fail and we doubt ourselves, and then we try again, and then we get frustrated, and we have meltdowns and things of that nature. It happens more often to us than I think maybe any other social group. To a large degree, because when you're combining the truth with your perception of reality, you are unable to hide from reality. You're unable to rely on ignoring things. Ignorance. Those things are comfort blankets for the weak and the fearful. And it takes courage to see the truth, to accept it, and then apply it. And most people that are raised in a New World Order system, whose parents were raised in a New World Order system, whose grandparents were raised in a New World Order system, don't have the whole picture yet. That what has been done to you cannot be undone. They say that, if what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's like, well, actually, what doesn't kill you can sometimes cripple you for life. Look at Christopher Reeve, former star of Superman the movie. Gets his bloody neck broken, and then he can't move anything below his head for the rest of his life. Can't even breathe on his own, right? He directed movies like that, just stuck in a chair, unable to move, with a breathing apparatus, sitting on set, telling people what to do, how he wants the cameras to be put and stuff like that, and his work was critically praised. If that doesn't give you some inspiration, that's interesting, isn't it? Because I remember Steve Hughes, who, in my opinion, is the greatest living comedian. Steve Hughes. Amazing Australian comic. And he's so good because one time he gave me and my band free tickets to go see his show in Auckland one time. We got to hang out with him after. And he was delivering his comedy in such a way that everybody was laughing the whole time, right? When you laugh real hard and then the laugh kind of starts to taper off before you actually stop laughing, he's told another joke and the laugh takes off again, right? Extraordinary comedy, and so smart too, and so meaningful. And I was having a talk with him afterwards at the Comedy Classic Bar, and we were talking about Bill Hicks, and he said Bill Hicks wasn't really using comedy. He was using philosophy, all right, a love of thought, philosophy. And that's what makes comedy really powerful, is when it's combined with real thoughts that come from a love of thinking. And what Steve saw one time is he was getting really depressed. You'll find that the most creative and most amazing people, whatever, are often very isolated and depressed and frustrated too. And he saw this book about a guy with no arms and no legs, who is a surfer who surfs his way around the world, right? And Steve's looking down at his arms, looking down at his legs, just going, what have I got to complain about? Look at this guy, And that's what I hope this show is for people, is a chance to realize that no matter how bad you think you've got it, there is always something worse that you can find. For example, Vinny's jokes. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming in here, and Michael Vachon becoming the very first YouTube member, which is fantastic. Thank you, bro. See, we have to start from scratch again. I was watching the unauthorized biography of Pete Santilli. Somebody stole it before my channel got taken down, so it's on YouTube. And there's a section in it where it shows how my channel got taken down by this character, and how many views I had at the time, and how many subscribers. I think this was in like 2014, maybe 2015, possibly. And at the time I had 22,000 subscribers and only 5 million views. And I think before I got deplatformed, I was up to like 65,000 subscribers and 11 million views across my 3 channels. So it was something kind of like, I'm building back up slowly, and the only way that I can do that is for people to be reminded, of the work that I've done, how long I've been here, and to want to contribute in some manner to that process. So I would encourage people to go and check out the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. That's the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, Vinny with a Y, because it's the most important question, and Eastwood, like, go ahead, make my news. And go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, make a donation and start up a regular automatic payment today, so to support the ongoing work that we're doing here to help give people encouragement, because that's what encourage means. It means to give courage. And we have lots of different guests and people who are coming on the show, and they all have interesting stories to tell that are all more or less the same. All right, and let me explain that. And by the way, Michael, yes, Steve Hughes it was. Everybody tells the same story, as I've elucidated rather on this broadcast here today, is that X, Y, Z phenomenon. X happens, then Y happens, then Z happens. Okay? And this is the same true in every successful truther or activist or anybody who's really successful in doing anything that other people don't want them to do, really. Okay, so you get trauma, and then you learn about other things, and then you apply those other things to try and change things for yourself and for mankind. Okay? Trauma, learning, application of what you've learned to prevent the trauma from happening to other people. That's what everybody in this show, in the entire history of the show, with the exception to, of course, Pete Santilli, who's a freaking psychopath. I guess there must be quite a lot of psychopaths, but then again, psychopaths are traumatized people too. You can't really become one without having a terrible upbringing, potentially. I don't know. Maybe some people argue that they're born. Some people say that they're argued are creative, and to that I say yes. Both of that kind of thing. And what this does is, in listening to people who successfully, most important note there, successfully come through their trauma, gone into their learning, and then come out the other side able to teach and help mankind process its trauma to a degree. That is encouraging, okay? And it comes from the old concept in South America that they called the wounded healer. Legend tells that there was a dude who had suffered a great wound, one that he could not think that he would ever get back to life after suffering it. And he was right. Until one day he meets a person who has suffered similar wounds and made their own way back. And in talking with this person, this man is able to replicate these behaviors, able to heal from those wounds. This is what we call the wounded healer. Somebody has to suffer similar wounds to you and made their way back from them in order to be able to teach that to you. They say that when the student is ready, the master will appear. And I want to thank each and every one of you for doing what you're doing. I don't know what it is you're doing. But I can be sure, after many, many years of this show, and talking to countless listeners of the broadcast, that you're all more or less the same. You're intelligent. You've got a sense of humour. You care about things. You have skills, real skills. You're quite talented in the application of those skills, and you're creative, and you're traumatized. Okay? A very unique combination of things. Now, I think if you had all those talents and all of that stuff without the associated trauma, would you be anywhere near as good as what you're doing? Probably not, because it was those things that are done to us that created us. And if what was done with us was monstrous, then they've created a monster. Okay? One day, these people who have done the things that they have done to us will be so upset that they didn't destroy us, that they actually stimulated growth within us, that we became stronger, that we became better, that we became more capable as a result of these terrible experiences, the things that motivated us to change ourselves. And then once we changed ourselves, it changed the circles around us, and that changed the circles around them, until eventually it comes full circle and we change the world a little bit with everything we say and everything we do every little day. Thank you, guys. We'll see you again sometime.
Gentlemen, I brought you here to discuss the Eastwood problem. It may be necessary to penetrate the Vinny Eastwood show. The Vinny Eastwood show. Yeah, that's what I said.
Well, I've been working on a new Vinny scene. I think that might be the kind of penetration we need.
Vinny Eastwood show. Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Live on Ground Zero Radio. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites. My fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood show is bad news. It's like the news, but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes. You see, this beastly, ghastly show has been exposing our Scumbaggery, which we call necessary. Yeah, and as the World Economic Führer, I believe we should give him a little gift, with a little card that says Merry Christmas from Santa Claus.
Oh yeah, we could send something through his windows. Yeah, I've been speaking with Jacinda Ardern that we need to eliminate the threat of Vinny Eastwood.
Why do you say Vinny Eastwood when it's clearly Vinny Eastwood? Absolutely, he's a major impediment to our planet. How are we going to get rid of him? We could poison his water supply. But we've done that already. Okay, I'm running out of ideas here. I'm sorry, I've got a lot going on. Klaus Schwab Jr. telling people that I'm some evil overlord.
Oh, that's just not true. You see, we're lifetime actors.
Yes, we play the role, don't we? But I am still glad, even if I am not really the overlord, that I have penetrated all the cabinets of the world. Penetration is big for me.
Oh, it's big for me too. I wouldn't be me if it weren't for the copious quantities of penetration.
Yes, well, thank God my mother's out of the way. Otherwise, I never would have been king. Just keep to go on and on. You know, the stress of dealing with this Vinny Eastwood problem is probably what killed her. I mean, she was a very young 96, wasn't she?